Okay, now, why did we just do this whole binary math thing? Well, again, remember, this is all about IP addressing. And in order to truly understand IP addressing, you have to know how to work with binary IP addresses. We already mentioned that each of the four numbers in an IP address is called an octet because it's actually an 8-bit binary number. Each bit is a 1 or a 0, and each octet can only have a number from 0 to 255. Okay, now it's maybe hopefully starting to make a little bit more sense. So here I have an example of an IP address of 192.168.10.101. And what we're going to do is convert that into a binary IP address. Now, first of all, again, remember, you can't have 0 or 255. And the reason is because all zeros, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, if we put a 0 in every column, well, that's just going to equal 0, right? And if you do all ones, see I have the columns up at the top? And then I've done the math for you. 128 plus 64 plus 32 plus 16 plus 8 plus 4 plus 2 plus 1. That equals 255. That's where those come from. So now let's take this IP address that I said we're going to work with, 192.168.10.101. We have to first take the 192 and convert that into a binary number. So we look at what goes into 192, which is 128. Subtract it from 192, we're left with 64. So we have to then figure out what goes into 64, and, well, 64 goes into 64, so we put a 1 there. Subtract it, and we're left with 0. So boom, we just add zeros everywhere else. And we get 192 in decimal equals 11000000 in binary. Doing the same thing with 168. 128 goes into 168. You subtract that, you're left with 40. 32 goes into 40. Subtract that, you're left with 8. 8 goes into 8. Subtract that, and you're left with 0. So you fill in the zeros, and you get 10101000. That's 168. Now we'll do 10. Hey, the first thing that goes into 10 is an 8. So we put a 1 there, subtract it, we're left with 2. 2 goes into 2, put a 1 there, subtract it, you're left with 0. Speaking of 0, you have to plug in all the zeros. And now we're going to do something a little bit different than what we've done in the past. See, in the past, we always just started with whatever was the biggest number, right? So if we were to say what is 10 in binary, it would actually be 1010. And that's it. But because it's an IP address and it must be an octet, it must be all 8 bits, you have to put the preceding zeros, so it actually comes out to be 0000, 1010. And then the last number we have is 101. And if we do the math, we know that 64 goes into it. Subtract that away, and we're left with 37. 32 goes into 37. Put a 1 there, subtract 32, we're left with 5. 4 goes into 5. Subtract that, left with 1. 1 goes into 1. Subtract it, you get 0. Plug in the missing zeros, and you get 011000101. So what that means is the IP address 192.168.10.101 is actually 11000000.10100000.0000010100101. How would you like to have to go around and say that all the time? Now you understand why we converted into decimal. Make it a little easier for us. Now, the interesting thing here is that not only can we do that with our IP addresses, but we can also do it with the subnet mask. The reason we have all 255s and all zeros in the subnet mask is because it's all ones through the 255s, and then all zeros represent 0. Okay, so if we're going to say 255.255.255.0, what we're actually saying is 111.111.111.000. I know I probably didn't say enough ones or zeros, but you get the idea. And so when you put it all together, you can see that it all lines up with how the 255s represent the network ID, or actually it's all the ones represent the network ID. And by the way, if you're thinking to yourself at this point, oh my goodness, my head is spinning. We've been talking about this for around an hour now. What the heck does this all mean? I mean, it's getting to a point where it seems like you're just showing me stuff to show me stuff. Believe it or not, there is a purpose behind all of this. The reason that we are going to break this all down into binary is because we're going to also see that we don't have to stick strictly with our classful IP addressing. They're A, B, and C class, meaning we don't have to divide our network ID and our host ID specifically by the whole decimal numbers. But I'm getting just a little bit ahead of myself. Okay, we'll get back to that in just a minute. But you just have to start off with this. Understanding that 192.168.10.101 and a subnet mask of 255.255.255.0, it has a binary representation, and knowing what it is going to help you in the future.